You spent your whole life becoming someone. And now at 40, you're quietly starting to wonder if it was all for someone else. You don't say it out loud, you just feel it. In the pauses, in the way your mornings feel slightly heavier, in the strange distance between your achievements and your aliveness. You look at the life you've built and realize it looks fine on paper, but something in it no longer feels like you. There's a question forming beneath the noise. Did I choose this life? Or did I simply build what was expected of me? Carl Jung once said, life really begins at 40. Up until then, you're just doing research. And that research, it's what your parents modeled, what your teachers praised, what your culture celebrated. You became what others needed, polished, successful, composed. But now the version of you that could hold it all together is starting to crack. It doesn't look like a breakdown. It looks like waking up in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling and realizing you can't remember the last time you felt fully alive. It looks like finishing a meeting, then wondering why you care. It looks like sitting at the dinner table, surrounded by the very things you worked so hard for, and feeling like a stranger in your own life. This is not weakness, this is not failure. This is the soul sending up smoke signals. What most people call a midlife crisis is not a collapse, it's an awakening, a summons, a holy unrest that says, there's more to you than this. But here's the thing, no one tells you the most painful part of change is not letting go of what was wrong, it's letting go of what was almost right. Because the roles you've played, parent, provider, partner, achiever, were not lies, they were partial truths. They helped you survive, but they were never the whole story. Now the soul wants the rest. This is the threshold, the moment the mirror begins to shift. You see yourself more clearly, not as the mask you've worn, but as the presence beneath it. The truth is, you were never just the life you built, you are the one who built it. And that builder, the deep self, has been watching, waiting, whispering, there's more, there's always been more. And now you're ready to remember it. You are not late, you are not broken, you are right on time for the life that was always meant to begin, and it starts here. There is something in you that never died, just went underground, not because you failed, but because you adapted. Because being accepted felt safer than being whole. Jung called it the shadow, the parts of yourself that were disowned to make you lovable, employable, respectable. Your sadness, your hunger, your anger, your tenderness, your unapproved joy. And here's the truth, no one says out loud, the shadow is not evil, it's not dangerous. It's not trying to sabotage your life, it's the forgotten self asking to be remembered. And midlife is when it returns, not as a ghost, as a mirror. Robert Johnson, a Jungian scholar who mapped the terrain of the psyche, warned us, the unchosen life doesn't just disappear, it festers. And eventually it seeks expression. Maybe that's what your restlessness is. Maybe that's why, after decades of being steady, something inside you suddenly wants to run. Not from your responsibilities, but from the version of you that never got to breathe. You start snapping over small things. You feel distant from people you love. You cancel the plans you used to enjoy. And one morning you wake up and whisper, I don't know who I am anymore. This isn't a breakdown, it's your unlived life knocking. David Richo, a psychotherapist and author, puts it beautifully. Our problem isn't that our needs went unmet in childhood, it's that, as adults, they remain unmourned. Mourning isn't about grief alone, it's about acknowledgement, about saying, yes, I wanted more, and I buried it to belong. Clarissa Pinkola Estés, a Jungian storyteller and analyst, tells the myth of Bluebeard, a man who gives his bride the keys to every door in the house, except one. He says, you may explore all you wish, but do not open that room. But she does, and inside she finds the truth, not horror, but history. The lives, the selves, the stories that came before her, all locked away. That forbidden room is your psyche, that key is midlife, and what's behind the door is your shadow. The parts of you that were silenced, the artist, the lover, the wanderer, the wild soul. The one who cried and wasn't comforted. The one who dreamed and wasn't believed. You didn't fail them, you protected them, but now the threat is gone and they are ready to come home. Because the shadow doesn't ruin your life, it ruins the illusion. You don't need to destroy everything, you need to stop pretending. You don't need to find a new purpose. You need to reclaim the parts of yourself you left behind. The parts that were waiting, the parts that still are. And the only question now is whether you'll open the door. There's a moment in midlife where your calendar stays full, your titles remain intact, and yet you feel like a ghost inside your own life. You're not broken, but something in you has broken open. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not even easy to name. But you start catching glimpses between emails in the car, standing in the grocery store. Why does none of this feel like me anymore? You wonder, am I depressed? Burnt out? Losing interest? But what if it's none of those things? What if it's not a collapse at all, but a confrontation with the truth? Carl Jung warned of it, this moment where the mask you spent decades perfecting begins to slip. He called it the crisis of the persona, the identity crafted for survival, approval, and belonging. And when that persona no longer fits, when the roles that once made you feel seen now make you feel invisible, the world calls it a midlife crisis. But it's not a crisis, it's a reckoning. James Hollis, a Jungian analyst and author of The Middle Passage, wrote, "The soul is not at peace until it finds its own path, and that path often begins at the breakdown of the old one." There's a story, not a myth, but something quietly real. A man wakes up on his 46th birthday. His job pays well, his house is beautiful, his family loves him. And yet he sits in the garage in silence for an hour, not because he wants to die, but because he no longer remembers how to feel alive. He's not in crisis, he's being summoned. This is what midlife does. It doesn't ask you to destroy your life, it asks you to stop sleepwalking through it. Jung wrote, "We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of its morning." The ambitions that once fueled you start to feel hollow. The goals you chased begin to shimmer with futility. And the questions you avoided come roaring in. Who am I without this performance? What do I want that isn't just expected of me? What part of me did I trade away to be accepted? You can try to outrun these questions with overwork, with reinvention, with distraction. But eventually they sit at the edge of your bed and wait for your eyes to open. Rollo May, the existential psychologist, wrote, "One does not become fully human painlessly." And this is the pain you're feeling, not dysfunction, not failure, but the grief of living a life that's no longer yours. This is the pattern interrupt, the point where your old logic begins to glitch. And what once made sense begins to feel absurd. This is where most people double down. They chase success harder. They fill the silence faster. They cling to the mask tighter. But a few, very few listen. They let the mask fall. They stop asking how to be impressive and start asking how to be real. Because this isn't the end, it's the fracture through which truth begins to grow, the holy rupture that says, "You've survived long enough. Now it's time to live." There is a kind of grief no one prepares you for. It doesn't come from what was lost. It comes from what was never allowed to live. The grief of the unlived life. It rises slowly, like mist from the ground. Not triggered by tragedy, but by quiet recognition. You see someone singing loudly in their car, and it stings. You hear a child laugh from their gut, and something in your chest tightens, not because of envy, but because of memory. A memory of a version of you that was once wild, soft, honest, strange, but never invited to stay. Psychotherapist David Richo writes, "Our problem isn't just that our childhood needs were unmet. It's that they remain unmourned. And mourning isn't always tears. Sometimes it's sitting in a room you once loved and realizing you no longer recognize who you became to stay loved. Clarissa Pinkola Estés tells a myth that holds the key. In the story of East of the Sun and West of the Moon, a young woman is taken to a castle by a mysterious bear. Each night the bear becomes a man, but she's forbidden to look at him. Eventually her curiosity wins. She lights a candle, she sees his face, and he disappears, cursed, bound to a far-off land. What follows is her journey across impossible landscapes, guided by crones and winds, collecting golden items that help her find him again, not to possess him, but to understand what she had never seen clearly before. That bear is your shadow. The forbidden is your unlived life, and the journey? That's this moment now. You begin to feel it around 40. You carry a professional title, a reputation, a steady rhythm, and yet inside there's a voice that asks, what happened to the version of me that used to dream? The one who wrote poetry and never showed it to anyone. The one who cried easily and didn't apologize. The one who wanted something different before life taught them what was realistic. That voice doesn't want revenge, it wants recognition. Sarah Uymete puts it beautifully. We grieve the choices we didn't make, the parts of ourselves we left behind. This grief isn't pathological, it's sacred. And sacred grief asks for ritual, not to dwell in sorrow, but to honor it, to light a candle, to write a letter to the self you left behind, to speak aloud the words you once silenced. I miss you, I'm sorry, I'm listening now, because you didn't betray yourself out of malice. You did it to survive. But now that you've made it here, you no longer need to be only what kept you safe. This grief is not a wall, it's a river. And if you let it move through you, it will take you somewhere you've never been, back to the person you were before the world taught you to disappear. And from there, only from there, can you begin to live forward whole. You look in the mirror, and you don't see failure. You see someone you don't recognize, not because you've lost something, but because you've outgrown someone. There's a particular kind of grief that comes when the mask begins to fall, not in anger, not in collapse, but in stillness. You smile at someone and hear your voice, but wonder whose words you're speaking. You tell your story and feel a strange disconnection, like the actor who forgot the script mid-scene. And deep down a truth begins to burn. I've been playing someone who no longer exists. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we craft to survive in a world that values performance over presence. It's not fake, it's adaptive. It helps you fit in, hold jobs, maintain peace, earn love. But it's still a mask. And eventually, even the best mask suffocates the face beneath it. The tragedy is not that we wear masks, it's that we mistake them for our identity. In midlife, that illusion breaks, not because you failed, but because your soul has matured beyond the need to please. Rollo May once said, the opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. And conformity, when internalized long enough, begins to rot from within. This is the rot you're feeling. The emotional erosion, the spiritual claustrophobia. The sense that no matter how much you achieve, something essential is being left behind. Marion Woodman, a Jungian analyst and fierce voice for feminine truth, once wrote, perfection is a mask. Beneath it there is rage, there is grief. There is a hunger to be whole. And you, now in this moment, are starving for wholeness. You may feel the urge to run, to fix, to rebrand. But what if the answer is not to change, but to shed? To lay the mask down, not in shame, but in reverence. It protected you. But now it's keeping you from yourself. There's a story you've lived by, crafted through years of proving and performing. Now it's starting to crumble. And in the rubble, a new question rises. Who was I before I needed to impress anyone? Jung often spoke of dreams in which he descended into basements, tunnels, caves, symbolic structures representing the unconscious. Each level took him deeper into what had been repressed, not just darkness, but treasure. You are in that descent now, the cracked mirror, the aching mask, the self you kept in hiding. All of it is leading you somewhere sacred and terrifying and necessary. The only way out is in, and the only thing you need to do now is stop pretending. Not dramatically, not rebelliously, but gently, as a quiet decision, as a sacred rebellion. Because your real life, the one you were always meant to live, can't begin until the mask is on the floor. There's a silence that follows the storm, not numbness, not collapse. But clarity, you stand where the old story ended. Not with a bang, not with a breakthrough, but with something simpler, presence. The world hasn't changed, but you have. You're no longer trying to be impressive. You're trying to be honest, and suddenly that's enough. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he also knew the price. You can't become that person without dying a little to the version of yourself you built to survive. The second half of life isn't a continuation. It's a return to the child who sang before they knew shame, the teenager who questioned everything, the artist, the dreamer, the lover, the one who once stood in front of a mirror and didn't flinch. You remember them now, and they remember you. This is not reinvention, this is integration. This is the dance of light and shadow, the unburied gold. The exiled twin returning home. Estés calls it the dangerous old woman. Not dangerous because she harms, but because she can no longer be manipulated. She goes where she wants. She speaks what she sees. She no longer wears masks that fit other people's comfort, and neither will you. There's a stillness now, but not the stillness of stagnation. It's the stillness of being rooted, of no longer needing to prove, of finally being able to breathe. You don't need everyone to understand you. You need you to stay with you. You have met your shadow and did not run. You grieved the unlived life and did not drown. You laid down your mask and found your real face beneath it. And now you are living forward from the inside out. You're not starting over. You are continuing finally from where your truth left off. So if you've made it here, if you feel something stirring, if the mask is cracking and the old story is falling away, you are not broken, you're arriving. And from here your real life begins, not the perfect life, not the life others chose, but the one that was always whispering to you in your quietest hours, come home, come home, come home.